Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of DnD Horror Stories. In today's episode, we have a story about a player that gets kicked out of the game and charges pressed against him for felonious behavior, a tale of a player getting booted for his taste in anime, and much more. But first, if you aren't already subscribed, I hope I can earn your subscription today. And to help convince you further, here is Simba playing with a string. And with that out of the way, let's get right into the stories. The Bard, the Wizard, and the Photographer by Reddit user FoxholeAtheist45. I hosted a weekly game for 4 friends plus myself. We had recently finished a campaign and everyone agreed to roll new characters and start from scratch in my homebrew world. Julie, a vibrant player with an always ready smile, asked if we could bring on a work friend. It was a good time, and though we had no experience, we saw no problem taking in a newbie. We always ordered too much pizza anyway. Mud came to us with 0 personality and 0 interest in the game. His interests were only in Julie. This was apparent when he tried to model his character exactly like hers. His entire creation process was asking what her character was and trying to pick that. She was a bard, and we didn't need another one, so Mud, the halfling fighter, was born. Mud spent most of his time with us on his phone, rarely interacting and saying, "I attack," then rolling his die and saying the number, allowing Julie or Carl, our wizard, philosopher, and mead enthusiast, to calculate his attack. He just didn't seem to care one bit about the game. We had a married couple, Josh and Tank, and Josh had accidentally glanced at Mud's screen one night. He was watching porn, some type of gangbang scene. Josh alerted me to it, so I pulled Mud aside and explained that that wasn't appropriate and that maybe he'd be happier anywhere else on Saturday afternoons. He said, "I don't have any friends," and this got to me. I felt bad for Mud, so with his promise not to be on his phone so much, I set about getting to know him a little. We shared an interest in aviation, so during the week, I sent him pictures of planes and helicopters that I encountered at work, and he responded well. So I decided to add an airship into the game for the party, and make him the pilot. It was a success. Mud actually seemed to open up a bit, and was comfortable enough around us to put his phone in his pocket during his interactions. But then, it all came crashing down. One night, we were outside vaping, just the 2 of us, and Mud mentioned Julie's outfit that evening, saying that she looked great. I agreed that she was rather fetching that evening. "Check this out," he growled as he thrust his phone in my face. I struggled to understand what I was looking at for a moment, but as I realized what it was, he began swiping. Images of Julie and Carrie's crotches flew by, all taken under the table. Most were of crossed legs, but a few were parted, as if he caught them in the middle of an adjustment. I don't know how he did it. There was no behavior that was suspicious to me or anyone else, except for the Josh incident mentioned above. I have no idea why he showed me. I was the one that told him that porn was inappropriate at the table, and our group did not do romance, as I've previously learned that lesson too. I let loose a "what the fuck?" and told him to get out of my house. Josh came out, and Mud grabbed his shit and left without a word. And yes, there were consequences. Law enforcement was alerted, Mud lost his job, and hired a lawyer. I can't go into much detail on the legal side, but there was some prosecution. Carrie was very traumatized, and Julie took it particularly hard. I guess Mud had alluded to a possible coffee date with Julie, and she was considering it. This was a very tough lesson, but if someone at your table isn't working out, it's okay to just let them go. And I should have sent Mud packing after that first incident. I should have held him for the police. I should have done a lot of things. I think OP may be being a bit too hard on himself here. Sure, perhaps Mud should have been kicked after looking at porn on his phone while playing the game, but I think second chances are things that not enough people are given in life. And perhaps OP thought that maybe Mud was just a bit awkward and just needed some guidance on how to act around people. Plus, Mud saying that he didn't have any friends probably alluded to this fact. How the hell was OP supposed to know that he would pull some shit like that? Plus, as OP stated, Mud seemed to get better after that first confrontation. It just blows my mind that there are people out there that think that it's okay to pull something like this, and especially to then think, oh, I'm gonna show this to people. I mean, what world was Mud living in? Thankfully, it sounds like the law was brought into play, and Mud received what was coming to him. Let's move on. Liking Dragon Ball is a big red flag. By Reddit user, The Amazing Lampoon. I joined a D&D group on Discord a week ago. The DM told me about the campaign, and I made a character with his help. I told him that I'd never played on Discord before, but he said that it's alright. In the Discord server, they had a group chat where the players talked. I also started talking there, and someone asked me what my favorite anime was, and I haven't watched many, so I told them that it was Dragon Ball. A few people started saying that I should watch better anime, and I told them that I wasn't really interested in it, especially the ones they were suggesting with the weird names, like Rent a Girlfriend. They were making fun of my taste in anime, so I thought they wouldn't mind me saying that the name of this anime was kind of cringe. Later, I received a long message from the DM that I was not welcome to play with them because I had all the red flags of being an incel, which, according to them, were 1. Liking Dragon Ball. 2. Making fun of Rent a Girlfriend. I've never watched it. All I said was that the name sounded cringe and probably isn't the type of stuff that I would be interested in. 3. I had never played D&D on Discord before, except they had previously told me that it was alright and that I'll learn. 4. The character I had made was a male half-orc barbarian. They also said that I had offended the other person who had recommended me the anime by saying that it sounded cringe, and that I should have said sorry. The person in question had said that Dragon Ball is for little boys, and not the show for anyone with a brain. I hadn't been bothered by this comment, as I thought they were joking, but it was weird that they wanted me to apologize. How are any of the things listed red flags of being an incel? I mean, wouldn't an anime called Rent a Girlfriend be more attributed to that? Getting upset that someone doesn't like the thing that you do, especially after you put them down for liking something that you don't like, is kinda hypocritical. And the group kicking OP out for it is a blessing in disguise, I'd say. Big bullet dodged there. What a strange world we live in. Let's move on. DM tries to lie to party of friends that we all hate each other. By Reddit user, Rivers Twisted. So this story happened years ago, but I found myself chuckling to myself about it recently. TLDR at the bottom. This story revolves around a real spineless DM that I will name Coward. It started out with me and Coward as players in a short-lived campaign, and after it fizzled out, he invited me to a D&D game, and I brought a couple players that had been playing in games I ran as a DM for years, that I will name Varen, Blizzard, and Blair. Things started out pretty decently, and we were having fun in a heavily homebrewed campaign, but issues started to form around how obsessive Coward was with being in control. The party was fleeing a city in a Magitech vehicle and driving across some flat badlands when we started to get chased by a bounty hunter who was behind us with a sniper rifle. The rifle was doing like 40 damage a bullet, so it would take any of us out with like 2 hits. And his hit rate was absurd, like a +12 against a party of level 5s. This is when I had the idea to cast Wind Wall behind us to deflect the bullets to give us a moment of reprieve. Coward says that that doesn't work, and the bounty hunter fires through the wall. I argued that the spell literally states that arrows, bolts, and other ordinary projectiles launched at targets behind the wall are deflected upward and automatically miss. And Coward says that the bullets aren't affected since they are a bit rarer, so they're beyond ordinary. Varen then joins in, saying that the exceptions that the spell lists revolve around giant boulders and siege engines, not bullets. Coward then argues that they're going so fast that the wind wall wouldn't affect them, which I and Blair argue that doesn't really matter, since the spell doesn't have an exception for speed, just size. Coward then yells that he's the DM and that what he says goes. We all shut up and play the rest of the session, which involves essentially a mandatory "you're all defeated and brought back in shackles" that I and Varen complain was super railroady, and Coward said it needed to happen for progression, since we weren't supposed to escape the city in the first place. The session ends, and I have a bad taste in my mouth. And then a few days later, I get a message from Coward saying that he was dropping 2 players, possibly 3, because his life is speeding back up and reducing the player count makes the game and stories easier to follow and manage. Interestingly, the 2 he was dropping were me and Varen, the 2 people who did most of the arguing against him in the previous session. A few months passed, and I get invited to a game that Blair and Blizzard are in that is also ran by Coward. I was just happy to play with my friends again, so I sat on the fact that I had issues with Coward as a DM. A few sessions pass, and things are mostly going pretty well. Admittedly, we didn't get a ton done because we were having a lot of fun role-playing and chatting with each other, and generally having fun. After like 4 total sessions, I get booted from the game, and Coward sends me a message saying essentially that I was a problem player that was bulldozing other people, enticing tangents, and cutting people off. He specifically mentions that Blizzard and Blair have aired to him significant issues. He has the gall to claim that Blair actually went to him crying, saying that me not letting her talk drove her to tears. This was bullshit for several reasons, as I was hardly the only person chatting and getting distracted. Also, and this isn't a dig at Blair, she tended to have a habit of spacing out, getting distracted, and cutting people off with jokes. But none of that really bothered any of us, since we were having fun. But I guess in Coward's eyes, we were having fun wrong. After being booted from the campaign, I get a message from Blair asking why I had to leave, and asked if everything was okay. Apparently, Coward had told the rest of the party that I had stepped out of the game due to family issues, and didn't seem to realize that, as friends, we talked to each other outside of the game. I told her the real reason I had been removed from the game, and she was surprised. None of what Coward said was true. She was never brought to tears or ever felt bulldozed. Blizzard was brought into the group chat, and he said the same thing. Coward had made it all up since he simply just disliked me. I messaged Coward about all this, and he says something like, "We can talk about it later tonight if you have any questions, and I admit I didn't handle the situation well last time." It took 4 days of me messaging him saying that I was ready to talk, for him to finally join a voice call with me. I opened the voice call with, "Why did you lie to me and the other players?" And he immediately leaves the call and sends me a message saying, "I'm only willing to talk if you're not going to come in looking for a fight." I tried to send him a message saying that I'm not looking for a fight, just asking up front why he was lying to us. But I just got the response that I couldn't send him a message. TLDR, Coward boots me from a game initially because I argue against a stupid ruling, and then after being invited to his next game by my friends, boots me again and tries to lie, saying that my friends hate me, while forgetting that we talk to each other out of game. Edit. I forgot to add this part. About a year later, I was playing in a game DM'd by Blizzard, and Coward wanted to join. Blizzard sent me a message saying that Coward was willing to put old wounds aside, and I responded saying that the old wounds was him being a cowardly asshat who tried to lie to the entire party, so I wasn't interested in playing with him. He ended up not joining. Edit 2. Okay, since a couple have commented this, my friends didn't keep playing with Coward. After we all found out he was lying to us, we dropped him, and when he tried to join Blizzard's game, it was because he heard through the grapevine about the game and tried to weasel his way in. I had more beef with Coward than Blizzard did, so he was open to Coward being there, but knew that I wasn't, so he didn't join. Yeah, I would have to agree with OP on the naming convention for that DM. Lying to a group of people about someone just to avoid confrontation and then to run away when confronted about it. I can understand why most of the players wouldn't want to play with this DM anymore. Not to mention the bad ruling on Windwall. Any good DM would have seen that for a really good play by one of the players and would have just run with it. But Coward didn't want that to happen and just pulled the DM as God card because he couldn't improvise on the fly. Though, who knows, perhaps Coward would be better off as a player, but I don't blame OP for not wanting to find out. Let's move on. The Cheater and Their Cookie Assault by Reddit user Magos Battlebear. My partner and I had joined a new D&D 3.5 group a number of years ago. Most of the group knew each other, and it was my wife, a friend, another couple, and the DM. The DM, however, wanted to bring another player he describes as someone who is really good and has played for years. We are okay with it because we trust the DM. Let's call him Phil, after the name that Zaphod Beeblebrox went by at the party he met Trillian at in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So, the session begins. Phil seems nice, and we chat and get into the game. He comes across as having a bit of interpersonal issues, but it was minor. Besides, we all have our hang-ups, so all is good. A couple of sessions in, Phil makes a roll, and there's some confusion about what he was doing, so another player offered to help him, as he was a 2nd edition guy and not well versed in the 3.5 rules. He hesitates, but his DM friend tells him to accept the help, to get the game moving. He relents, but does not hand the paper over. He simply relaxes the hand to let the other player take it, and was very passive in a way that shouted, "Something ain't kosher here." Everyone is staring at the sheet as the player takes it. It turns out the character sheet was blank. We had not noticed because he kept things in front of it, obscuring it, but it was blank. The DM let him make a character, but never checked it. But it turns out he never made one. That was when I noticed his D20. It was an old D20, from one of the basic expert sets from the 1980s. In those days, they were made of cheap plastic that tended to chip, and over the years, the D20 would become more and more spherical. They also did not have the numbers filled in, and you were supposed to use a crayon to smash wax into the groove of the number to be able to read it. Yeah, it had no wax, and the numbers were worn away enough to make them hard to read, even with a close-up look, let alone the quick roll and shout of a result the player was giving. We chided him, but we let him stay. He made a character, and we let him use dice that were readable. Everything was fine, and we were getting along. Until the cookie. One of the players made cookies for us. She liked to bake, and since her and her fiancé's apartment was our play space, she really went beyond and made cookies. It was super sweet of her. So we took a break and chatted about this and that. It was really fun, but I think Phil was not over it, and the cookie baking host wasn't either, because they started to bicker. Not angry, but not perfectly civil. Suddenly, Phil throws the cookie at her, and this cookie was a large cookie, maybe 5 inches in diameter. They were also thick, and while not solid, were firm. Firm enough to leave a mark as she ducked her head to avoid the cookie flying straight at her face. The mark it ended up leaving was not one that you could simply wash away. It dented the plaster and drywall. I could comment about the construction, but you know. She blew the lid and ordered him out. The DM apologized and we broke up for the night, but Phil was never invited again. Well, I guess that's just how the cookie crumbles. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. Anyway, what the hell was Phil planning on doing? Just improving everything, including his stats? Surely a smart man would think that someone would eventually see that the character sheet was blank. and then to get mad when being called out and resorting to cookie warfare. Though sure, D&D was ruined that night, but hey, at least OP has one heck of a story to tell. And that's all we have for today. If you have a story that you would like to be shared in a video, be sure to post it to the D&D Doge subreddit, post a link in the comments, or even at me on Twitter. As always, I appreciate all of you, and I hope none of you get hit in the forehead with any projectile pastries. Until next time.